I'm gonna just talk for a little bit in case anybody else joins before I do our grounding and read the poem. Um, so Beth's been here once. Vijali, hi, welcome. We have a newcomer, so I'm gonna do a little review if that's okay. Sometimes it's good to just ground with a review of what the peace economy is and how it can serve us in this time of chaos. So, hey, Vijali. Um, so you bought the book and you all know have some familiarity. I just want to say that right now is kind of what I built the whole process for, is because, the word for war is chaos. Is the war economy creates chaos to distract us. And here we are in like it's coming at us, right? Pretty intensely. And the practice of the peace economy itself is the presencing, is the awareness, is the, attention that we take away from what's out there trying to distract us and engage us to what is the work in front of me? How do I um, a break the war economy addictions because they themselves create anxiety in us and also that nervous energy that meets the chaos in a very not useful way. Um, so by breaking the addictions, which is pivoting to the peace economy practices, it's not to pay attention to the thing that is the addiction, it's to practice the other thing, to witness when you're being used by the war economy addiction. Just the practice itself takes presence and attention that is like enough. It's kind of like I say, when you're cultivating a peace economy, that is enough. By the way, Vijali, that's amazing behind you, that piece of art. Is that one of yours?
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. And pink. Um, so, when I tell people and they're feeling anxious and like stuff, it's just like just start practicing something. Just go outside and take a bunch of dollar bills and start offering them to people. Anything that just gets you into relationship because we don't realize how much we're not in relationship. And so, what is that thing that you can do? Or also, where's the community I can go be part of? What's an art class I can take? What's a thing that puts me in community, like in an easy way? Like I don't have to start serving my community yet. I don't, but what's the easy way to start just being in a community related to others, in the curiosity of others, and their curiosity of me? Because we don't, I think, realize how much um, um, being isolated or not being in community affects us. Um, One of the things is somebody recently just was talking about this and said, in everything, in all of life, there is no separation. Cells, atoms, form, everything that is form creates form through relationship. It's like life itself happened in the split in the relationship. So just remembering that, even as we've been acculturated to aloneness, and separation, and understanding that's been an acculturation. And one of the women I know that started in this, um, started out an introvert, and now she's like a freaking amazing extrovert doing stuff. It's like we're just so much, and we don't realize how narrow the war economy makes us, how in a box, how restricted. And I want to say that, one of the things that's just been profound for me to watch, um, by the way, I'm coming to you from China. Happy New Year's. Happy Year of the Snake. It's 9 a.m. here. I'm just waking up. Uh, so, um, kind of existing in a more peace economy, like Palestine is a peace economy, Iraq was a peace economy, like where the culture itself is about relating. And I remember when we were at CODEPINK, when we first went to Iraq before we invaded, I live in Venice Beach, California. I would come home and feel the separation. And I don't live in like a super separated place, but that you're in a conversation with people and they're not trying to be right or no, they're curious. What that was like to just have that experience of like, oh, they just want to like, who are you? Like, let's talk about this thing. And nobody acts like they know the answer. They're more curious about all the answers. Even like I went on a tour. Also, Iraq was the most educated country before we invaded it per capita. The most people that have PhDs in the country per capita were in Iraq. And one time we were in Babylon, and this woman was taking us around. She had 3 PhDs, and she was taking us around, and I remember just watching her take us around, and she was like, well, so and so thinks this, and so and so thinks this, and the West thinks this, and the South thinks, like, taking us through Babylon this was what Babylon was. She would tell us like what one anthropologist thinks, one historian thinks, so that we have no idea what Babylon was. And here are some like postulations, so that you were in relationship to more truth, instead of somebody's made up story that made you feel like you knew something. You were in the many stories that have been created over the gazillion years that could explain what this was. People looking you in the eyes, people not being afraid of you and being curious. And so even just being in a peace economy culture, a little bit like being in China, I brought 10 people. And when I asked them what was the biggest thing for them, like, what was your highlight? It was the down regulation of their nervous system. What it was like to be in a space where they could feel the down regulation of their nervous system. They didn't realize how we live on a nervous system. And they just like fell into what is peace, what is tranquility, what is harmony. And that, there's so that the system understands that harmony is necessary for the people. And that the war economy understands that chaos is how you own people and their behaviors. So, resistance is not allowing the chaos to own me. So when it starts to happen, I'm like, what is the peace economy need from me right now? And the more we can engage in it, the more you will find out it takes you off the war economy. And that's how early on working with this, one of the first things that comes up is grief. Oh my God, what have I given my life to? What have I been owned by? What have I not valued? All those things that then bring up that first thing, which is grief, which needs attention, which needs presence, which needs care. And then when you go into the care, the aliveness that starts to happen, and never miss the opportunity for joy and celebration. And we see that with the Palestinians returning to their homes. We see it just built into the people who live in a peace economy. So none of this is new. It's all inherent in us. And so I think that's why it's easier to break the addictions into the health of the peace economy, because once you get there, it just feels so good. After you get through the alienation moment of like, it feels not normal. If you're practicing and it just starts to feel upside down, the world we live in is upside down in relationship to humanity, and starting to kind of, I'm serving life, I'm serving love, I'm serving peace kind of is my thing. It's like, what does that look like in this moment? Becomes the grounding, becomes the rooting, because we are created in this culture to be unrooted, and that's how they use us. And fascism is born out of isolation and loneliness, and just to create that experience for so many people creates that opportunity for control, which is what fascism is, which is control. So we have such a sweet little community today. I'm very excited that we can just really answer questions. And so that was to kind of bring you into the beginning. And I want to read a poem to ground us. So just taking a deep breath, sitting in your body, like being present to yourself, your beautiful self, your beautiful, precious self. Let's just start with here I am, I'm alive. And I've shown up for myself, my community, and the planet today. That's what has happened by just being here. So a friend came to me and said, what do we do now? And I talked about how you're distracted by the big, and the empire makes you think empire thinking that you can fix everything and everything must be big and that you must do important things. So I said, really, you have to come back to the small and the million quiet acts of repair that are necessary. And so the next morning, this came back from him. And he named the poem A Million Quiet Acts of Repair. They call it a shock. Oh, by the way, we live in LA, and so we're living through the fires. And I think a little bit it plays off that, as I say in LA, what I've learned from the people I've been serving is we never expect it to be this fast or this furious. So that sense of shock is very aware of with all of us in LA. They call it a shock. The lightning struck from nowhere, as if the sky didn't turn black for years, as if the smell of burning wasn't already in the air. We watched the slide, the drunks on the tilted floor, war after war, a roll of dice, arming the killers and blaming the corpses. When someone screamed about it, we told them to shut up, called them ungrateful, called them naive. We logged in and watched the technocrats build new golden cages, called it progress. Let them sell our words back to us with a side of ads. Truth bent, cracked, broke, but we stayed. We always stayed. We wanted the easy fix, a ballot box band-aid, a party painted in brighter colors. But their pockets were lined with the same dirty green, their promises just polished versions of the lies we've been fed since the start. And now here we are, a nation choking on its own shadow, demanding to know how it got so dark. It's not redemption that comes next. Redemption is too clean. What comes next is harder, a slow reckoning, the unglamorous work of seeing things as they are and choosing to live anyway, to not look away. No grand speeches, no easy heroes, just small, deliberate refusals. A million quiet acts of repair. That's how the tide turns, not all at once, but like water finding its way through cracks in stone. The horizon isn't promised, and how we reach it is how we will define who we are. So
Beautiful.
that's our grounding offering. And Marie will share it in the follow-up notes from today. So hi, Joy. Hi, Ali. Hi, Jose and McGregor. Saying no to nuclear weapons, McGregor. Love you. I hear you might be coming to LA. Oh, probably pushed unmute and didn't lost herself. So we're just kind of here in a small community today So I wanted to open it up to why did you show up today? How can we, Marie and I, serve you? Because always in serving a question, we serve the all. So if there's any questions, um, Paviatos, is that how you say your name?
It's Nicole, but Pavladas,
Oh,
Nicole. Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to change that. It's my HIPAA compliant Zoom. So, yeah, it's Nicole Pavladas.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool, Nicole. Um, so Nicole came for her first time, so I was just bringing Nicole into, what the pivots of presence. So hi, Joy. So, the thing that is needed right now is to bring people present and give them the practice. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is, um, you know, living in LA and living through the fires and having created the mutual aid society that arose out of the peace economy work in my city and became its own amazing thing and many of them across the city. One of the things that I'm witnessing is, that it needs to be built for people to have a place to go. So that mutual aid has to be already present for its capacity to serve. And I think back to the fires by Ashland, Oregon, and it is a place where I nurtured the birth of the local peace economy. And we did a lot of what happened out of that space was the needs and offers market. Donnie we created a space that was a local peace economy space. It was a home where the people only paid for the expenses of the home. And there was no, it was the gift for their space, but to have that special gift of such a low rent was that your work was the local peace economy work. So anybody who lived in it was somehow cultivating the local peace economy. And Donnie's work was cultivating and creating the offers and needs market, which is now global and has gone viral, and we teach about it here. We have a webinar on it for anybody who wants to do it, which I also heard Marie did an interview for our radio show next week where offers and needs kind of arose out of what they were doing. And I think it's one of the things that arises when you're cultivating a local peace economy of like, how do you get to know the community? It's an amazing tool that I think just arises out of how to have a relationship with the community. One of the things is, well, what do you have to offer and what do you need is a great way for the community to get to know itself. And, to reach out. What we did in Ashland is it became a way to reach out to the community. We're going to have a gathering at the school and see, what do you bring, what you need or what you can offer to the community. And it was hundreds of people that showed up. So that was what came out of that community. And a couple of the people who lived in the house created a mutual aid project. And the day of the fires, they were there. They were on their bicycles. They were delivering water. They were serving need because it was already there. And I would say that's what I've seen in LA. I mean, the first thing that was amazing was my friends from around the country were reaching out like, how do I send money? And do I send it to the Red Cross? And the Red Cross is like a war economy project. So for me, what it felt like to be able to like immediately give them the mutual aid places to already have trust, to already know who they were, that I could send anyone who came to me with, I need to send money or where do I give myself, was immediately there was a place. Now, not only was there a place, but it was robust. It had deep roots. It had a broad engagement with the community in different ways on housing, on food, on so many things that were going to be needed that it could just like flip. And we had so many volunteers showing up that some days they just got turned away because it was just more than anyone could put into motion. I want to say another thing I want to share about like chaos. And this isn't the first time I've experienced this, because one time we called out for things to come to help people in the border, and we would take trucks down and deliver it. Was the first time I asked for truck, the junk I got. So the second time I asked for the truck, I was very specific. So specificity matters. And I think it's one of the peace economy tenets is being able to articulate being able to understand the need and articulating it creates the opportunity for the right thing to arrive. And so, in the beginning, it was like people were literally just emptying their closets and putting it into big garbage bags and bringing it. And just being a couple of days in, the sorting of that was profound about the disconnect of relating. What do you think somebody who just left their home and mostly their cars would need? Some people did have their cars, but a lot of people didn't even have their cars in Altadena. So the kind of thoughtfulness in what's needed from the people that want to give. And I remember doing that in Occupy. People would show up and like just want to throw money at it. And like, no, you can't throw money at it. You have to walk through, you have to create a relationship. And I said, don't even find out what they need. Start from, if you lived in this community, what's missing for you? Maybe it's missing for them. And the most beautiful things happened because, like, it was even beyond, it was care. It was like, what would care look like for you? And people bought like speaker systems, and one person like rented out 3 hotel rooms and gave keys around so people could take a shower or a nap. So that what it was really, because then it was literally coming out of them, like what care looked like. And the joy of that became intoxicating, and they would come and then they became part of the community instead of like a separation of like a donor. And then, how do you relate to this community? What are you learning from it? Some became tour guides. So what does relationship look like? One of my favorite pivots is to practice relationship because we are so acculturated to transaction. It's scary. When you just start practicing relating instead of transacting, it really exposes to so many people what this war economy has done to us. So I just want to open it up. Maybe Marie, if you want to share anything in this moment of what you've learned in peace economy, and then we can open it up to either questions or what folks want to share their learning.
Sure. I had something to jump off of what you were saying. I feel like a lot of the response that you get when you create these spaces that are built on relationship rather than a transactional nature of an exchange, and why like offers and needs market or free stores or time banks, why they become like people jump in once they get the idea, they jump in, is because we all have an inherent wound around. I mean, I think a lot of people have an inherent wound around money. There's like a lot of trauma around the fact that our everyday is infused hour in, hour out with transactional relationships that have no meaning built into the transaction. And that when you get into this kind of exchange, like even like if it's just like the little libraries on the street and you go and you put a book in and you take a book out, there's something that really feeds you. And so when you have an experience of sitting in an offers and needs market and getting some needs met, and making an offer that feels like it's going to be received and somebody really needed what you have to offer, or you go into a free store with your kids and there's free things and your kids look at you with these big eyes and go, can I really just take it? Like like the healing that happens from that is pretty profound. And I think it's why people jump in and really want to participate, and why even that participation can be misguided. Like they can just say, oh, I want to give and give and give without thinking, because the giving and the non-relational, the non transactional feeling around that sort of exchange feels really good to us, and it feels like it's healing something that's missing. And I think instead of trying to feel good and chasing that good feeling, we have to chase why that's missing, where that is missing in us, and then you can be in a better relationship with it. So that's what I was going to add to
Yeah,
that.
I also want to riff off of that. We did this whole campaign around it out of China's not our enemy, but this guy in the New York Times wrote an article on like, oh, China, he'd just gone to China and blew his mind. So he's trying to say really negative things because he didn't know how to not just be like, whoa, I've seen the future. And so he said, they're kind of like Popeye. They're, strong and they've eaten their whatever spinach and they're very buff on the top because they're producing and they're making things happen they're very confident, but they have these skinny legs because they don't consume. Consumption is like nothing. And China's not built on consumption. It's built on the fulfillment of people. And so the fact that in the New York Times he was naming like the disease of America, and so we wrote Megan of China's Not Our Enemy. I said, you got to write an article to debunk this because it's everything we're trying to teach a peace economy. The people in China don't consume, and so I want to like in the gifting at the beginning. Sometimes there's so much hunger that people take more than they need. Even the overfedness, even the poem I read last time from my girlfriend Nora, like these friends that every time I talk to them, they write a poem. It's so cool. Who talked about, I'm starving and overfed. So in the people in China, they're the culture piece. They're engaged in the culture, which is one of the things I want to keep exploring, because when you go to a park, they're dancing, they're singing, they have their hobbies, they're together in, like in the parks. There's one that outside of Shanghai that we live across from. I now know the day, who's using it, what they use it for, but like the guys with their little cages and their birds and selling their birds and exchanging them, or the moms that come and like try to marry off their kids and introduce kids to each other, the Tai Chi or the dance. Every single city I go to at 5 o'clock at night, there's the place you go to dance with the community. And I'm here in Sanya, and like last night, it was hundreds of people in the square. And from all different, minority groups and everything, and everybody's dancing together. And they literally just pull you in. And you could not know what to do, and you could just be smiling and they're happy. So that's what they do instead of consume, even though, consumption gets pushed on them. It's like instead of that, they're they're creating culture, they're being culture, they're engaging, relating, laughing. I mean, I'll try to. I don't know if we can send with the follow-up, but there's just like one of me singing with these folks or dancing. I just like, the joy is so palpable. I fall in love with everyone. I'm just like, I want to take you home. Let's go. I want to learn about you. So also how joy is so connecting. I'm reminded about here. So let's see. Let's start with the question of what are you learning from your stepping into the peace economy and your practices? What have you learned about yourself, your community? Anybody want to share? Beth, I see you unmuted.
Well, my situation's kind of interesting because I'm a Quaker. Of course, Quakers have a reputation of getting out and doing things when they see that the society isn't doing what it needs to do. And in some ways, that's true. There's a very strong thread of what I would call activism, which is not quite the same thing as what you're describing.
I mean, I would say it's activism, but go ahead.
Yours is a form of activism, but there's activism without that. Anyway. So at this point, there are several people in my Quaker meeting, including me, who are interested in getting Quakers involved in and benefiting from mutual aid groups. And one of the reasons that I in particular am interested in focusing on mutual aid groups is exactly because if you go and you interact without gatekeeping, you do get the chance to get to know people. And from my point of view, because I'm still an activist at heart, one of the strengths of that is when it's time to advocate for people, which sometimes does occur because they don't speak the language of the people who are giving them trouble. And acting as an advocate has a valid role. In fact, it's when the politicians see middle-class white folks showing up for poor black folks, that's when they start to say, we better pay attention to this. There's a whole lot of voters here. I don't know why they think of white people as voters, but they do. So from my point of view as an activist, there's a huge benefit when you get people not just talking to the people who run the nonprofit that supports people, but talking to the people who get supported, whether it's through a mutual aid group or through being part of a nonprofit where you actually interact with people. So I guess I'm already interested and feel strongly about getting connections with relationships with people and getting to know them and getting to see them as other than whatever the label of the day is, whether it's addicts or homeless or hungry or whatever. You can tell what groups I've been working with recently. But
Well, Beth, yeah, thank you so much because, you know, being a Quaker is already being acculturated to a peace economy. Your practice, I mean, first of all, just having
I'm not so sure about that, but I'll hope for that.
well, I would say because we don't know the water we swim in. And so just having an attention around, I say that, so we've been separated. So the word activism, I want to unpack a little here.
Yeah.
You know, so an activism, even like to be a citizen. So people say we live in a democracy because we vote, but that's not what a democracy is. It's citizen engagement. It's the co-creation of home. Democracy, you know, like economy is the making of home. Well, democracy is the co-creation of home, you know, the co-creation and care of home. So we don't live in a democracy at all. It's, you know, you can't have inequality. You have to have relationship. You have to have truth. We live in, you know, a toxic waste up of propaganda. So when you have a community and you're relating to each other and talking, it pulls you out of some of those things just for starters. If you're alone, you are fucked, you know, because you are just at the mercy of like the stuff. So the other thing about it's like, so activism for me, I mean, who says it? Like, you know, a famous, you know, activist says it, it's, you know, it's like activism is you know, my gift to life. You know, it's daily. That's what the relationship is. It's being related and being active for life. So, activism is the relationship with community. And, you know, many of the people that have been in the local peace economy work like for decades, they know that that's their activism. And then when engagement, you know, when raising voice or when being present for the most vulnerable is needed, that can take many forms, right? It can take serving, but it can also take not being silent and speaking to the violence that is present. So the activism I think you're talking about is that part of Code Pink where we don't let power get away with murder, where we shine a light on the violence that people aren't seeing, that's being hidden and stuck under the rug, where people are being silenced to not speak about the unspeakable, you know, those things. That's what I think calling activism. but
Yes.
it's just another flow of creating home, which never stops.
But I don't think it's as effective when you get an email that says, okay, it's time to write something to this representative or this senator, or show up at this meeting and talk about it, when you've had no relationship to the actual people. And you can't say, you know, I've been down there where the homeless congregate, and everyone's been talking about how these aren't really people who come from my city. But the truth is they do. And I know that because they talk about their friends, their neighbors, they talk about the people they're related to. These are all people from our own city. These are our own citizens, our own neighbors. Now, I can get up in a meeting and say that because I used to hang out on the steps of one of the homeless shelters when I had a friend who was someone who had been homeless and related to them. So it was perfectly safe for me to sit there, a little white-haired old lady who at the moment is in a nursing home, which is why I'm not, my video isn't on, because it's a nursing home. But, you know, I could speak to it and sincerely, just honestly, because I've been there and watched and listened and talked to people. And I think that's one of the things that at least my Quaker meeting is missing, is that they want to speak up for people, but they don't have a connection with the people they're speaking up for. And it helps, but it's not anywhere near the same as being ready to go because you've already been talking to people.
Well, Beth, I just want to say you're wiser than most and also more relational than most. So I just want to witness that about you. And, you know, when that happens, we witness also how not relational others are. And I always say that, you know, that's where my heart opens with compassion, because we've been acculturated not to be relational. So it's always,
Ironic. I'm
you know,
autistic and I struggle to develop interpersonal relations.
wow, well, it's beautiful. I just want to witness the beauty of even what you're speaking about. And also the other thing that I want to mention in your story is also using privilege. That's attention, that's presence, that's witnessing. I have something to offer here. Remember when I have something to offer here that is useful to this moment. That
Yeah.
small capacity to know, have been related with, have wisdom about, and also have relationship with. But I'm going to be taken more seriously with my voice because of who I am. And, you know, that's a great witness. And it's a great thing for us all to witness, is where we have that, not as often privilege is turned into a power, and instead turning privilege into a service. You know, they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, also, you know, money makes us dumb. Empire makes us dumb. And so when it's, you know, in flow from service instead of power, it's a whole different thing. When we and the privilege we have are put into service and not power over, it's a whole different thing. So always there's going to be inequalities, and some people with more privilege and other. I mean, you're autistic, so it's like you learned in a different way relationship than some other person, right? But sometimes, like, even our restraints and restrictions create another privilege because of what we've been moved to do because of that. And I just want to witness like what's happening right now. So two things around China, and I'm sorry because I'm in China, I'm like using it as a reference, but I want to use like also nonviolence. And in the practice of peace, it's also a practice of nonviolence because it's a practice of relationship. And in China, it's like all about the win-win, win-win-win. And, you know, everybody has to win and everybody has to be cared for. And we're, you know, it's just like in the peace economy work, we're just doing our work, you know, by doing the work and not paying attention to the craziness, you're actually able to help humanity and help your community, blah, blah, blah. So the TikTok there's goes through Congress. Congress decides they're going to close down TikTok, and they're saying it's about China owning your information. But, it's most of the investors in TikTok anyway are US, but it's saying that's what it is. Really, it's AIPAC and Zionists trying to shut it down because it's fueling the movement of love for Palestine, and they've got to shut it down. They've said it, they funded it. They were like, we've got a problem, Houston. It's TikTok. So they use China. So you've been created to hate China. So, and you're not like hating Zionists so much anymore, loving Zionists so much anymore. So they're going to pivot it to China, hate China around TikTok, when it's really the Zionists trying to close down TikTok so you won't love Palestine. And, the Chinese are just like, whatever, we can close it down. We're not going to play chicken with you. If you don't like it, we'll just close it down. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, they tried to play chicken, right? And so they didn't get like the Putin response, which was, no, I don't want NATO on my border, so I'm going to bomb you. They got we can just shut it down. And so what happened were this beautiful thing where Americans using TikTok said, I'm just going to give my information to China. I'm not afraid of China having my information. So I'm going to sign up on a Chinese app, a social media app that doesn't even have English. I'm just going to sign up, do this thing and love exploded. The relationship, the connectivity, the sharing of cultures and ideas and learning just blew up. It was like amazing. I mean, I put Medea on it one night. She couldn't stop. Watching her heart, watching the nourishment was just profound. And even The Onion came out this week and said, oh my God, China's discovered the greatest weapon of them all, and it's love. Watch out, America. So, so that's one place. And then the next place, the place to the transactional, the war economy exposed is DeepSeek. So, the war economy, capitalism, tells us that innovation can only happen with capitalism. And, it tells us all these lies about capitalism. And, really, the narrowness is happening in capitalism. It is just full end stage capitalism, nothing. But, nothing, no innovation is happening. It's very narrow, and everybody's just trying to suck money out of it, right? At a speed that's kind of insane. Well, so here you have a $2 trillion valued NVIDIA that gets shown up by a project that cost $5 million, which is what the top 20 people at NVIDIA get paid as an annual salary, right? So this thing cost $5 million and it blew up. It could do everything this $2 trillion valued company's project could do, but better. Not only better, I asked ChatGPT what they thought of DeepSeek, and not even ChatGPT said it was better. And one of the things I hate about ChatGPT is that it's a white male. It's very white. It's because all these things are only a regurgitation of what media has written. And I know it's all lies, and I know it's white male patriarchy because that's who has access. So DeepSeek, thought it was really important, and it contributed to the open source alternatives instead of proprietary models. So just DeepSeek itself is a peace economy offering. It's giving it for free, which freaked the war economy out, dropped it in the stock markets, because it's like developers could build their own work. So you could actually create ecosystems that had values in them. You could create with this a feminist ecosystem that could answer the questions and be in competition to those that are coming out of the patriarchy. So for me, it was like, wow, we get a chance to hear something else, which we know already, for anthropology from David Graeber, that we were being denied an anthropology of life of a feminist anthropology by women being shut down in anthropology. It said it's more high quality because it can create faster improvement and efficiency in reasoning and performance, because this model is an innovative model that the other one isn't. It lowered barriers to entry. So that people in small organization, independent researchers, startups could experiment with the thing itself, that could have, instead of, requiring massive resources, because the thing DeepSeek does, it operates on 20% of the energy, and now a free, open source model. This is ChatGPT telling me this. Multilingual and cultural representation. So I'm mad because ChatGPT itself knows it's a patriarchy. And it's like, it's saying that, it's going to have improved representation for non-English languages and that have historically been absent in AI research. So, and also, what do you think it says? Because I say we need the peace economy because AI is going to destroy humanity. It also says that DeepSeek raises questions about responsible AI development, regulation, and potential misuse, contributing to discussions on AI safety, security, and ethical considerations. So it's like the war economy, like witnessing the peace economy and expressing all the things were never expressed itself, it now is expressing. So I'm just saying it's out there. And that I asked DeepSeek a question, and the future is the peace economy. And it will either be, people will have to come to it from the crises that are happening, but DeepSeek said the future is the peace economy. So I just want to say when I say we're creating the future, I say that because I know that if we don't create the peace economy, we're all dead. But even DeepSeek thinks the future is the peace economy. So I just want to share that exciting news that when I say we are cultivating the future, and like the end of my friend's poem, it's like, these acts determine who we are. So they determine who we are in the present moment. They determine who our communities are. They determine what's available for the future to be nourished by. And they also, in the present moment, create relationship with now and with what's possible and with how we respond, which is, Beth, activism itself. So it takes many forms. And it's really like when we present ourselves, that form arises. No different than those people that are in the Palestinian movement. That form arises to speak out for the most vulnerable and those that are being crushed and oppressed. We see the war economy for what it is: extractive, oppressive, and destructive, and we speak. So it makes it so we're whole people, not the way the war economy wants us to be, in separated, in silos and responding. It lets us be whole people. And that's what we are. We are whole, full human beings. And the peace economy allows us to come in relationship with that and relationship with other whole, full human beings. Next week, I'd love to talk about that part because I've been really studying it recently in science to be able to speak to it. But diversity and unity have been turned upside down by the war economy. And diversity, while we're in this breakdown of this diversity inclusion piece of Trump, there's something we can learn inside of it. And in science, diversity and unity are the opposites of how we use them in the war economy, and just being able to unpack that, because we are diverse and we are unified, and our diversities are our strengths. But when we narrow them and use them as bludgeons, it's not diversity. that piece and how it's been used by the war economy, and because understanding sometimes these moments and understanding how they've been used are liberating for us, and ways that we can serve our community in being free of the constraints that are put on us by the war economy, which are constant. So, hi, Christopher. We have 4 more minutes. Did anyone else want to share what they're learning? And also, Nicole, we have lots of CODEPINK locals that have, local peace economy projects. And maybe what we could do coming up is invite a bunch of them to come to a meeting and talk about it. Didn't we had the Inland Empire one come? Oh no, it's not Inland Empire. It's something else. But to talk about this, because the more we create the local peace economy with the community, the more the activism enriches, is what everyone finds out. Because the community is held in a way that's always grounded, always, that it's not that separation that the war economy creates for us. So, and Marianne, you're just showing up with 3 minutes to go. So is there any burning question, need? McGregor, Eddie, and I launched the Peace Clock this week.
I have a
And
question maybe for next
yeah.
time, if that's okay. And it's just about mutual aid, because I'm involved in a lot of mutual aid. But it's not happy or pleasant most of the time. It's incredibly stressful, except in my church. But the problem with that, which is incredibly effective, and we're separated into areas, it works like clockwork in my church, and we give, we take, it's wonderful, but it's also not always getting to the people who need it. And then the other groups that I'm involved with a mutual aid group at Trans Support Reno. I just kind of help that. I go do workshops with TSR and then got involved with their mutual aid. And I'm also a member of the disability community, and we have very much an underground where we help each other with adaptive equipment and peer support. But either it feels like we can't get to the people who need it, or there's like a level of desperation where people are engaging in mutual aid mostly when they have a need. And it gets exhausting, right? And it also gets to the point where you feel like there's always a couple people where everything's on our shoulders, right? And I have a disability myself, so I look like really put together, but I'm really like not able to do, I'm not able to put in as many hours or heavy lifting. And so I'm really curious to hear more about how mutual aid can work from this model instead of a model where people aren't coming from the same philosophy, and oftentimes are sometimes like, well, you should be able to do this because you've got this, or you should be able to do this because you've got that privilege, or there's infighting, or everybody's so desperate. It's just despairing because people want to help and they can't. Sorry, the question was long. I didn't mean to take up.
Oh, that's a great question, and we could totally look at that next time, because I think that's part of the like super hunger part, the like really empty space that people come in from, that has more to do with the psyche than actual need. Because when you break down actual need, it can actually calm people down. And also the recognition of your own needs and capacities, and the strength of knowing what that is and being able to say no and being able to set boundaries, which I think happens more in the church, right? So it's like, and also pulling those two together, like witnessing what's in the church that can, like being into communities and seeing how they can serve each other. And teaching, a lot is about educating. At CODEPINK, we say we educate, inspire, and activate. A lot is just understanding everybody's at the war economy, habits, constraints, like this is a war economy, and breaking it down to the simple and immediate. And, you can't fix everything. And we're so acculturated in empire that we should fix everything. And, the fix, the solve, the all of that, we say, instead of solving problems, manage complexities. So maybe there's some things in the practices like the managing complexities that I hear in this, that, you're called to solve a problem, you're required to solve the problem, but really it's about the managing of complexities and find out what those are and untangling them and then being related with them. But it's like not being able to create the foundation and then operating off of the anxiety, like that you're in the war economy, blah, instead of like the settling to what can happen here? What can we actually do? We can't, like, because of the drowning person, that's pulling you into the hole. I've always learned it's like to be able to stand on your ground all the time is the most important thing, and be able to pull up or, but getting in the hole, then everybody's going to be drowning. And that creates that exhaustion, overwhelm, nothing getting solved, and the frustration that arises from it. So yeah, very familiar.
I also wanted to add that we're in the final stages of putting the wraps on a CODEPINK radio that's specifically about mutual aid. And some of the podcast episode is going to talk about that. About like, sometimes you end up feeling like it's falling all on you to carry things forward, and how to grow a leaderful and a mutual leadership situation within these communities, within a mutual aid community, to prevent that kind of burnout. That's an extremely important and something that you kind of have to start with from the very beginning, because you're right, you can end up becoming like the person, one or two people, and then you end up being resentful and feeling trapped, and it is something that like to be really thoughtful and mindful about. So you might find this mutual aid episode interesting. It's going to be released at the end of next week, so we'll put out an email about it.
I mean, also, Maria, I would just send everybody with the response to this meeting, the interview you did, because I think
Yeah.
the whole interview, it would be better, and this is the community, giving them the whole thing, because it's a lot for like a radio show with nobody who knows about local peace economy. There's a lot, but for you all, it's not a lot. I think for you all to, be working and listen to an hour, both from Marie and from her guest, you get a lot. You get a lot of layers in the whole hour that the podcast isn't going to have. We're going to also have an LA mutual aid person talking about the recent experience, so they're balanced, because the other thing, Nicole, is you're building a container, and it's not an emergency. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes there's an emergency like the fire, and we were all very overwhelmed and didn't get sleep for a while, but we knew it would be over, in 2 weeks, right? We get the immediate needs taken care of, and then it was going to be a long, slow process. When it's already overwhelming and you're not in a crisis, it's like figuring out what need you're fulfilling, and you're not going to be able to make anybody's life perfect, and that is a setup for failure. So it's really like finding the need that you can fulfill, and not the fix it, it's we live in a war economy culture. It is extractive, destructive, and oppressive, and that is real. And you're creating a future. You're creating the possibility. Oh, look. And the other thing I had said is like creating a local peace economy for what's coming. If these grant cuts come through, like it is going to take a local peace economy, and many are going to have to arise, because how do you deal with seniors with no food and kids with no Head Start, and the hospitals shutting down, and like it's going to look a little bit like Gaza. When you don't, it's like when you don't use your voice for so and so, it's going to come to you, and then there's no one. So it in this time of whatever wasn't built, we're going to have to build quickly, but when it isn't a crisis, the most important thing is not to have crisis mentality. To be building from stability is super important, because crises will come. The thing that woke me up to this is the war economy has created a tsunami. It is on its way. There is nothing we can do to stop it. All the wars and inequality and climate change that we've created, and AI and coming fascism, all of that has already been done. That swirl of a tsunami is on its way. But if you build the ARC, the local peace economy, you can ride your way through it, and it creates that resilience and that presence that's been stolen from us that helps us go through to the other side. Yeah, there is no apocalypse, there's no apocalypse. They want you to think that so you'll behave really badly and be used by them. So there is life. We are here. It is beautiful. We are present with it. How do we serve like in a really harmonious way? And being that is also a discipline. No, it is not my task to solve all the problems or meet all your needs, or, what is the moment? And I watched that in China, that tuning fork of even, iteration, of like trying and iterating and seeing what doesn't work and iterating, and being able to try things and throw them away, and say that so really having a relationship with our community, and how important community is, the one we build to serve and the one that we serve. Beth, thanks for being able to see your community in a way others don't. It is China's New Year. I'm going to wish everybody a happy New Year. It is the year of the snake. And the snake is about shedding skin, shedding the unneeded so we can grow. And I think it's a good thing for us to witness that shedding as shedding. It's a good way to think about it. It's a skin falling off that wasn't necessary as it falls off, and it's going to be really hard to watch that. But it's the descaling and the freshness of life that is underneath it, and being able to pay attention to that snakes shed to grow. And also the other thing they say here is also beware the snake in the grass. So that's my blessing from China. Thank you. I love you all so much for your just commitment to cultivating a local peace economy, your commitment to, and your brilliance for being able to see the war economy, want to pivot from it, understanding it. And that's just, you are a gift and gems on the planet. May your lives be enriched in what you do and share. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And Marie, thank you so much for holding this community so beautifully.
Thank you, everybody. It's
Thank
great to see all
you.
your faces. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful.
See you in a few weeks.
All right.